Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Generating Conversations and Creating Clients. I am so excited for the guest that we have today. It is a mentor of mine in the AJC Coaching Career School and friend, and his name is Deryl Sweeney. And I think this is wonderful because, Deryl, you have made such a difference in my life and just the way that you see generating conversations, the way that you see coaching, the way that you see service in people. And so as somebody listens to this, I would recommend, I was on a call yesterday and someone said, have you ever been on a plane? And all of a sudden you're relaxing, or you're sleeping, and they come over the speaker and you're like, oh gosh, is there turbulence? What's going on? Have that type of listening, but perhaps a little more easefully, but the same level of attention of what you're going to share here, Deryl, because you are powerful in the work that you do and the work that you do with leaders. And so I'm really pleased to have you here. And for those listening, we're in for a treat. So I'd love it if you could just share who you are, Deryl, and who you serve.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for having me here. This is a really cool space. And I feel like I've gotten a real gift in that I've gotten to watch some of these other conversations that have come before me, some of the ways that you and your guest have just created real value for the listeners. And I know we're going to do the same. And it's been neat to see that while the conversations have centered around the same idea of creating conversations and creating, really growing businesses in powerful ways, they've all been different. And they've all brought a different flavor and a different perspective. And I feel very honored that you would ask me into this space and that I get to add to this ongoing library of conversations that I believe can serve anybody, right? Whether they're coaches or contractors or sales managers, salespeople, entrepreneurs. Like the list is very, very long. And for you to create this is just an easy way. All I have to do is show up and talk to you. An easy way to serve and to help is really, really cool. So thank you. And as for me, that's what I do. I serve, I support businesses, leaders, organizations, entrepreneurs come to me who want to create something in the world. And I partner with them to amplify that creation. A lot of my one-to-one clients are CEOs and founders and people that are looking to find their next level of success in their organization or create the next thing on their journey. And I also work with leaders and managers who want to be more effective and drive better performance out of their teams. So that's a lot of the work I do.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect. And I know we're doing this in the spirit of the AJC Coaching Career School, and we're both there, and it's been amazing. And so, as I'm reflecting on this, one of the stories that you shared, and I believe you said it came even before the AJC, was that there was a period of time where your practice would be half full, or it wasn't as full as you would like. And I thought, what better place to start, especially because I imagine if people are wondering how to generate conversations or to get into more conversations, they're wanting to either fill their practice or they're wanting to expand their skill set. And so are you open to just sharing where you had sensed things were at, or a little bit more of that story of what that shift looked like?
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to start because it's real. This was early in my journey of building a successful coaching practice. The practice was half full. I was doing well. I was doing okay. But this topic you're talking about felt really hard to me, this idea of creating conversations. And I imagine if you're a coach out there and you're listening to this, chances are you've read The Prosperous Coach, and The Prosperous Coach speaks to connect, right? Invite, create, propose. And I think that was kind of my first entry into the world of Steve Chandler and the world of kind of a way of building a coaching business, right? Beyond marketing, beyond some of maybe the traditional ways to build business, more person to person, right? I often say there's a relationship business. And I studied those steps and I was all about those steps. And I felt really comfortable once I got into the steps. I love connecting with people. I know you're a natural connector. Right? When we get to sit down with somebody and be with somebody, it's something that's our element. That's where we just really thrive. And once I would connect with people and we'd have a great conversation, and then I would invite them into experience who I'm being as a coach, experience what it felt like to work with me. And then after serving them and them creating some level of shift in their world and their life, I would propose a deeper level of service, right? A deeper way of us working together on an ongoing basis. And the deepest level of service that I provide is inside of a one-to-one coaching partnership. And so all of that made sense to me. And I felt like I was doing pretty well. And the business was half full. And a part of that was simply, I was running a system that wasn't creating the output, the opportunities, the revenue, right? It literally, I was running the perfect system to create a half full business. Right? One of the things I love from Chandler and Trevor Timbeck's book, The Power of Systems, is, the system is always perfectly designed for the results it's getting. So I literally called it, when I looked at this, the half full coaching business system. I wanted 12, 13, 14 clients, and I had 6, and I would get a new one and one would finish up and get a new one, and I would just hang out there. And James, I will just say that the story I'm going to share with you and with your audience, it speaks to the power of coaching, because part of my system was I had a place to bring this stuff to. So I was working with my coach, Ankush Jain, and I brought him this and I told him we're 6 months into working together. And I told him how amazing the coaching had been, right? Things were shifting for me. My health was getting better. My relationship was getting better. The business was getting better. And so there were no problems, but I also felt like it could go faster. And I thought he was going to tell me it was my thinking. I thought he was going to tell me that all entrepreneurs want it to go faster. I thought he was going to tell me it was normal, but he didn't tell me any of that. Instead, he just simply told me, Daryl, faster is available. And it was when he said that and the way he said that I knew, okay, strap up. Like he's going to bring it and you better be ready to receive it. And he did. And he challenged me. And we spent an hour talking about the shift that we as coaches have to go through. And I think this extends beyond coaches, but that we as coaches have to go through in order to create the kind of businesses we want. And he explained that he had to go through it. And he explained that I would have to go through it. And I listened. James, I brought my best listening. I brought my 10 out of 10 listening. I felt like I was getting the sense of what he was pointing to. And the thought came into my mind, I'm paying this guy a lot of money, so I can just be really direct. And I said, Kush, thank you. And what is the shift? Put language to the shift I need to make in order to do this. And he said, you have to shift from treating your business as a glorified hobby and treat it as a business. And what I heard in that was, up until then, I love being an entrepreneur. I love that I could do outreach one day. I could work on social media the next, maybe do some stuff on the web. There's so many various parts of the business to be in, serve clients at times. But it was what I did, how I showed up in a given day or in a given week was largely determined by how I felt in a given moment. I would create clients or create conversations if I felt like creating conversations. I would write social media if I felt like it. And that is what he called treating my business as a glorified hobby. And what had to change for me was I had to treat it as a business. And what that meant and what came out of that conversation with Kush is, how many conversations do you want to have each week? How many conversations will it take in order to create the business you want to have? And where we landed on was 10, but it was a very specific 10. See, a lot of us coaches, and you probably know this well, we can have a lot of conversations on our calendar. And if we get really honest with ourselves, a lot of those conversations are with people who will never pay us, who will never work with as a client, right? And that doesn't mean they're bad, right? We love talking to other coaches. We love talking to other people who are developing mastery and skill as a coach and as an entrepreneur. And if we're not careful, we can fill up our calendar with that and then wonder why our businesses aren't making more money. And so we were very clear coming out of that call that the only conversations that counted as those 10 had to be with a paying client. So as a client who was paying to have the conversation with me, or somebody who could become a paying client. And once I started doing that, I look back. So with that kind of criteria, I look back on the previous weeks and I was at 4, I was at 5, I was at 4, 6. And that's what created my half full business. Once I elevated that to 10, the business just really took off. I mean, it was kind of that hockey stick curve where I was having 11 conversations a week, 12, 14, 10, 11. And that naturally led to walk me straight into more connecting, more inviting, more creating, and more proposing. And that eventually led to a significantly overfilled calendar. So I overdid it the other way. But that's what helped me really build my business. And that's what I think is so brilliant about the conversations you're having here, because what is a powerful foundation in that story, but I don't think is necessarily obvious in the story, is what it took in order to create those 10 conversations week in and week out. And that conversation changed everything. And yeah, that's probably where we'll go from here, because I think that's the magic in this. And it's not a criticism of Chandler. It's not a criticism of Rich Litvin. The book is brilliant. The book is brilliant. Where I see a step is missing, what I think is not talked about enough in coaching programs or in that book, is how do we create those conversations? I'm cool connecting with people when I get to that point, but how do I get to the point that I can connect with people everywhere? How can I get to the point where I can create those 10 conversations? And learning and developing that skill was a massive part of elevating and just growing my business.
Wow, this is so good. I have so many questions. And yeah, so I love this because you're really sharing, right? Shifting how you were treating the business. You were sharing how the system that you had was perfect for a half full practice. And so some of the questions that are coming through for me that I know I've encountered as I've spoken with people about this type of thing. So one question that I have is, when you say that you started treating the business differently, I'm hearing that you weren't basing it on your feelings. You were treating it as a professional. That's what I'm hearing as it's your profession. What would you say allowed that shift? I know you're mentioning that conversation with Ankush. But let's say somebody's listening to this. They have a half full business. They are finding that they're only having a few conversations a week, and in their perspective, maybe they have thought, I am searching for more conversations to have. What occurred in your shift that made those other conversations possible? Or does that question make sense?
It does. The shift for me was, hey, are we doing this thing or are we not?
Mm.
Like, how serious am I about creating a 6-figure and then multiple 6-figure business? I say I want it. Um, that's not enough. It's not enough to want things. One of the things I love from Werner Erhard is, the only determinant of results is action. Right? And you're going to get a lot of my favorites in this, but it's because they're meaningful. They're not just phrases. They're not just quotes. They're things that fundamentally drive how I see the world and how I see my business. Another thing you've heard, and we can share with your audience, is this idea of the Spanish proverb, right? God said, take what you want and pay for it. I said I wanted a full coaching business. I said I wanted to make X number of dollars. I said I wanted to create X levels of success. I said I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. And through that conversation with Kush, I got clear on what is required, what is the cost of having the things I said I wanted. And then once I knew what the cost was, the only question was, am I willing to pay it? Am I willing to step into that. And I wanted the business to work. I wanted this to be what I do. I didn't want to go find a job. I didn't want to look at other things. I had done those things. I've had jobs. I've built other businesses. I loved coaching. I knew I wanted to be masterful. I wanted to be one of the best to ever do this. And in order to do that, I had to build a business that worked. And so the shift for me was simply, if you want all the things you say you want, I've got to step into doing the things that will create that. I've got to show up as that. Not show up from a place of comfort all the time, but show up and learn these skills, learn these steps, learn how to create those conversations, as you're saying.
Wonderful. Yeah, right. It's like they say, we don't get what we want, we get what we're committed to. And
Yeah.
I'm yeah, I'm really hearing that there was no more of that. I'm going to take my emotional temperature to see what I'm willing or not willing to do. Am I really committed to creating what I say that I want? I know we're gonna get into some of the steps that you took. There's something that you said that was interesting to me, because I know in this style of, people can talk about service and being of service, and and like you said, they might have calls on their calendar of people that may not become a paying client, and in their brain they're going, well, I'm being of service. What did you find helpful for yourself to kind of find that balance of, I'm going to be of service? How would I say this? Like, how to put the emphasis on the person that is going to pay? Because I think when some people think about service, they don't think about paying. They're only thinking about, I'm just going to give everything away, and that service. And so they have a business to run. You're committed to
Yeah.
that. You want
Yeah.
to make what you want to make. And so what did you start doing to have that balance that felt in integrity to you? Yeah.
Yeah. This is such a great. I love that you keyed in on this. This speaks to your brilliance and your listening, because you're taking me back into some of the most powerful coaching sessions I had with Kush. I mean, and the one that comes to mind, one for the person that says, I'm just giving it all away, and service, has nothing to do with people paying me, and people shouldn't have to pay to get access to help or support or things like that. I would say it's awesome how powerfully you're stepping into service. And I hate that you're leaving yourself out, right? Because if we're not serving ourselves, if we're not serving our business, then we're actually limiting our ability to serve the world. Right? We're limiting what's possible. We're limiting the way we work. So, you used the plane analogy earlier. We all heard, put your mask on first before you put the mask on others. And in order to truly be of service, we have to serve ourselves. We have to include ourselves in that. Same way I feel like, in order to truly love others, like to deeply love others, we have to love ourselves first. It's a requirement. It's a non-negotiable. So that's one. The coaching session you take me back to is, I started serving. I started filling my calendar. I started spending time with people. And like you, I was committed to service. And even when my wisdom would tell me that this person will never pay me, sometimes it's not even my wisdom. Sometimes they would come out and say, hey, I could never afford coaching, so thank you so much for your help. Can we talk again in a couple weeks? Like, yes, yes, yes. And I was filling my excuse me. I was filling my calendar with a ton of service, but not always service that will lead to clients. And I brought this to Kush. And one of the things that came out of that session, that speaks directly to the heart of this, is in the beginning, the only things that looked like service to me were giving people my time to sit down, to spend an hour with James. And I think a lot of coaches fall into this. We believe that in order to help somebody, we have to spend a lot of time with them. And I had to learn and start to see that service can look a lot of different ways. And so when it became clear that people weren't going to become a client, I didn't stop serving them. It's not where service ended, but I figured out other ways to serve them. I got much more intentional about sending somebody a book that I knew if they read the book, it would change something massive for them. I would send them a video or a resource that impacted me or impacted my clients that I knew if they brought their whole selves to, they're going to get so much value out of that video that it's going to change something in how they show up in the world. I would take the time to create them and speak to how they read the book or how they listened to the audio or watched the video so they could get the most out of it. And so suddenly service didn't look like I'm going to spend another hour coaching you for free. It may be, I'm going to send you a $10 book because that hour is worth more than $10 to you. I'm going to send you a $10 book or send you a free resource. And I'm going to send you a 5-minute voice note on why I'm sending it and what I believe is in it for you, what I see is possible for you if you bring your whole self to this. And that became just my way of serving. When people weren't in a position to hire me or weren't interested in working with me, I was still committed to service, but I was also committed to, I want to serve in a way that serves them and serves me. And that required me to find ways to serve beyond just giving people my time.
Wow. I love that you're sharing this because I actually think it ties directly into what you were sharing before, right? Of what you're really committed to, what you say that you want, no longer taking the emotional temperature, that it's almost very similar that instead of it just being, oh, there's this person in front of me. It's really holding the context of your profession, of your business, what you're creating, so you can prioritize properly. That's what I'm hearing. That it doesn't mean that you're not being of service. It's just the way service looks. It shows up differently depending on the person.
Yeah. And I just want to add this one piece. I believe, I believe that the way I serve people, even when I don't give them my time, can be more powerful than service they experience from people that give them a ton of their time. And as we tie this back to building our practices, I've gotten amazing referrals from people that would go on to become clients. And the referral came from people that had never paid me a dollar. Right. So we want to serve people so powerfully that they never forget us, that they never forget what happened for them in their experience with us. I remember one woman in just a situation. We had a half-hour conversation. It was clear. She said right away, I have no money. And she had some real money stuff going on. And you know, perhaps you've read Barbara Stanny's book, Under Earning, Overcoming Under Earning.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I sent her a copy of that book. And I took the time in that half hour to create that book for her. I told her, don't read this as a book. It's tempting. Don't read it as a book. Treat this as a workshop. Every exercise, slow down, work through it. Every question, sit with it. If you don't have an answer, set it down and come back to it. Don't rush through this book. Treat this as a workshop, as a program, as coaching that you paid thousands of dollars for. And if you do that, you will find gold in this. And I never heard from that woman again. Months and months and months later, somebody came to me and we had a conversation. And she left our conversation. It was the first time I met her. We had a great connection. We're going to talk again. She went out and she had a lunch meeting, and it happened to be with that woman. And she said, oh, I'm just coming from, I met this new coach, Daryl. And that woman told her, that guy changed my life. And when this person brought this back to me and told me, I was like, what? God, I didn't even spend that much. I mean, that was less than an hour. I spent less than an hour with this woman, and I gave her the book and created it. And she did the work. So this isn't about me. She did the work. She brought herself to that. But the way that I showed up in that moment and from a place of service created that transformation from her. So it doesn't always require us giving time for people to experience something that really impacts them.
Wow. So I'm hearing that there's this element of service showing up in different ways. I'm hearing it's creating it for the other person, so they know how to treat it properly. And to me, that's just so powerful. Also, very very divine, right? For that to
Yeah.
occur. And I'm also hearing that by approaching it in this way, it's almost less of a conversation perhaps in your head of who's next, or something like that, but almost in the context of what can I share with this person
Yeah.
that will have a ripple in their life, that will make an impact. And it allows you to feel like you're giving something beyond your time that could even be just as valuable, if not more
Yeah.
valuable, to that person, and really seeing it in that way. That's a shift in perspective, I think, for a lot of people who maybe have only identified their time as the thing they could give.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. And I'm curious. One of the things that you shared before, you said, uh, what happened once you committed. Yeah, I'm curious. So if we're picking up on this point, what did happen once you stepped into this sense of commitment? What did the change in behavior look like? What did you see that you weren't seeing before?
Mm. That's the question, right? What did I see that I wasn't seeing before? And for anybody listening, I want to give you a trigger warning that what I'm going to say may trigger you because it triggered me a lot. I heard it before. I'm not going to say anything you probably haven't heard before. And people used to say this to me, James, and it used to piss me off because I had this belief that, yeah, that's not what it looks like to me. And what looked different to me is I had the same story that I think a lot of us have. So as I say this, please know that there's no judgment. Like this was me. This was real. And that story was, okay, cool. I've done the thing, right? I've reached out to the people on LinkedIn. I've put some posts up on Facebook. I've reached out to the people on my phone. I am out of people to reach out to, right? And this isn't a business where I just want to rinse and repeat and just I've reached out to everybody there is for me to reach out to. What do I do next? Um, the shift, what looked different for me. And again, I keep going back to it. This is a beautiful reminder of the impact of the work we do. Um, I brought it to a coaching session and I said, man, I'm out of contacts. Like, I've exhausted my list. Where do I find these people? And that's a question I often hear from mentees or coaches that I work with is where do I find these people? And the shift for me was waking up to where do I find these people? Where do I find these conversations? To really seeing that conversations are everywhere. They're everywhere. And the first time I heard that, I ignored it. When Kush said it to me, it pissed me off. So it triggered me because I was like, what do you mean? Like, then what am I doing wrong? Right? If conversations are falling out of trees, why don't I have any conversations and what am I doing wrong? And I had to really slow down. So I'll make that same invitation to anybody listening to this to really slow down. I talked to a client yesterday and it wasn't about this. It wasn't about conversations. He's a founder and a growing, scaling organization. But we we're talking about being present. And this analogy came out of our session about where he's shining his light, and that comes to mind here because, you know, we look and we think the whole world is lit up and that these conversations are just around. And the reality is, it's kind of in some ways, I think, I've built several businesses. So as entrepreneurs, it kind of at times feels like we're feeling around in the dark. And so sometimes we forget we have a flashlight. And when we click on that flashlight, it doesn't illuminate the whole room. It doesn't illuminate the whole world. We've got to decide what we're shining it on. And when we slow down and shine our light on where conversations are in our world, we suddenly see that, my God, we're in the world. Like most of us are in the world to some degree. Now, if you're a coach who never makes it out of your basement and your whole entire life is online, it may feel different. And I would challenge you even there and say, yeah, you're still in the world. What are the platforms you're on? What are the rooms you're in? Where are conversations happening now that you don't see? There's opportunity for you to create conversations. And so the shift for me was going from where is the next conversation? I don't know where it is, to conversations are everywhere. And once that lens shifted for me, once that thinking shifted for me, I literally saw them everywhere. I saw them in the gym. I saw them in coffee shops. I saw them when I traveled. I saw them in my family. I saw them online. They were everywhere. And we can dig into the details of that. But I really want to highlight, I don't want this to be theoretical, right? I want to make sure we're serving your audience so we can go as deep and as detailed in this as you want to. But I don't want to gloss over this idea that conversations are everywhere. And if you're anything like me listening to this, there's doubt, there's frustration, there's maybe even disgust going on right now in your mind. And I would just invite you to try it on for a week, try it on for a day, like listen to the rest of this conversation and just be open to the idea that conversations are indeed everywhere. And as a possibility, I'm just not shining my light on the things, the opportunities, the possibilities, and the conversations that are right all around me all the time. That was what looked different for me.
Mm. Wow, this is so good. And how did you? So I love that. So it's waking up to there's conversations everywhere, and even being open to that being a possibility. And so seeing conversations everywhere, what's the way that you would treat conversations? And I mean that in the sense of, as a business owner, right, who's wanting to fill their practice, the way they might have treated a conversation is, I want to create a client, or I'm only looking for conversations because I would like to create
Yeah.
a client. I'm hearing from you that there's a certain, I mean, you didn't directly say this, but there's a certain way you treated it or saw it that almost opened the world up for you, that there are conversations,
Yeah.
and it felt like you could even enter conversations.
Yeah. You're masterful. Like you, James, are masterful. The things you're pulling out of this, the things you're hearing and picking up on, like this is why people hire you to help them with this. Like you're hearing things and what I'm sharing that is even surprising me that you're catching. Like you're catching the nuance, and I believe there's so much gold, there's so much value in the nuance. Um, the way I saw conversations and still do to some degree. And again, there's nuance in that too, right? So I would say going from zero to call it six figures, it may look a certain way. I think this may look different when you're not full to after you're full, when there's more time on your calendar and to where time becomes, more scarce, right? So at every phase, there's nuance to this. But if we really look at the early days as I was building into a full practice, um, the way I saw conversations were simply that. My charge was to go create conversations. I didn't overthink it. Um, and one of the questions I often get from clients or just from other coaches I talk to are, well, in the prosperous coach approach, there's step one, connect. And so you create the conversation, then you connect. And then, Daryl, my question for you is, I'm having trouble getting from step one to step two. So how are you thinking about those conversations? You didn't ask this, but I often get asked this. How are you thinking about that connecting so that it leads to step two? And my answer is always the same. Say, when I connect with somebody, I'm not even thinking about step two. In fact, step two doesn't even exist for me. I'm not there to create a client. I'm not there to, now, I'm also not of course that's in the back of my mind that this person could be a potential client, but I'm really there to connect with somebody. I want to know what's going on in their world. I want to know what's real for them. I want to know how they're doing. I want to know what's challenging. I want to know what's working and what's not working. Chances are, as I get curious and ask them about themselves, they're going to ask me about what I do. And they've probably shared something. I see those conversations as opportunities to build relationships. This is a relationship business, so it's an opportunity to build relationship. And in building that relationship and having this conversation, if something comes up in the conversation that I believe I can support them with, that I believe I can help them with, that I can be additive for them, that I can be a powerful partner in them. That then and only then do I think about step two, and that is inviting them into a coaching conversation, inviting them to experience what I do. And so if somebody's just told me about, what's going on in their world and business is going really well, and they're passionate, it was great when they were solopreneur, but they now just built this team, and it's a whole new ball game, really managing people and all of those things. I don't jump in. Ooh, no, I'm not selling anything. I listen, I get curious, I ask questions. And when the conversation turns to me and what I'm up to, one of the things I let them know is I help people navigating challenges just like the ones you're describing. Now, I often tell people there are two things I don't do. I don't sell coaching, and I don't convince people they need coaching. None of my clients need coaching. I see coaching as something that bends time, that helps people move faster than they would otherwise move and accomplish more than they otherwise would accomplish in less time. So if I hear somebody in the scenario I just said, I'm not selling them, I'm not telling them about coaching, I'm telling them why they need coaching, but I may offer them to experience it. Man, if you really want to get a sense of what I do, let's take this people problem, right? This challenge, you leading people and not just leading the business, bring it into a coaching session, experience what it is to be coached around something real, something going on in your business. How does that sound to you? 90% of people would take me up on it. Right? And again, it's not because they want to hire a coach. They didn't even come into the conversation necessarily looking for a coach. But, one thing Steve Chandler says that I think is brilliant, that I really try to keep in mind, is there's only one question anybody's ever really asking, and that is, can you help me? And so if I hear something that they're trying to figure out, and I believe that what I do can help them figure it out, I'm simply offering to do just that. And they get to experience what happens in that space. So I see these conversations as an opportunity to connect, to get to know what's going on in your world, what's going on in your life, what's going on in your business, what's working, what's not. And then if there are opportunities for us to do anything beyond connect, we'll make those available. And if there's not, that's beautiful too. I just stepped into relationship. Who knows if this person will be a referral, will want to have a conversation about coaching a year from now. They're leaving with a deeper sense of me, and what I do, I'm leaving with a deeper sense of them. And who knows where that can go. So that's how I think about conversations.
Wow. And it sounds like this can occur. You started to see this in a lot of different places. Like you said, could be at the gym. And I'm hearing that there's a connection. I imagine you're asking some questions to people to get to know them. Something that occurs to me is you're telling me this is I notice that sometimes people can think they're doing something to somebody because they're entering the conversation. And I mean, I'll have you share. For me, what was a shift is I realized the conversations that I would have with people, pretty much no one else is having them with them in their life, and so that's how I kind of had a felt sense of uh, permission to ask or to bridge a conversation or go deeper. It wasn't something that I was doing to anybody. I was able to see how much of a gift it actually is for the other person, because they really don't have that space to share. That was my thinking about it, but I'm curious how you're thinking around it. Yeah.
It's There's some things that just look really true to me. They feel true to me. I don't doubt them. I believe that anybody I have a conversation with will be served by that conversation, that I'm going to leave people better off than I found them. I don't care if it's out here at the water cooler. I don't care if it's walking down the street. I don't care if it's the man or woman who hands me my coffee. Like, if I engage somebody, they're going to be better off when I leave. Right. And I'm intentional about that. So I know what you're saying. I agree with you 100%. I know that when I have a conversation with somebody, I bring value. And me having a casual conversation, this has been reflected back to me so many times that, my God, this has been helpful. Wow, this is really cool. I know even a casual conversation, I am providing value, right? I don't go in there, hey, I'm a coach. No, it's not that, but I'm just providing value in who I'm being. I also know that, so when I connect with somebody, they're going to take something out of the conversation. I'm going to provide value there. That is a way that I provide value. I also know that somebody that says yes to an invitation to step into a coaching, to be coached by me and to experience me as a coach, I'm going to provide even more value in that container than I did in our casual conversation. And so it's almost like this value ladder or value staircase. And as I said before, the deepest way that I provide value is in a ongoing committed coaching relationship where we're working together, where you get access to the support that I bring and the resources and homework that I give and the deep coaching sessions that we work through, and having a partner who walks alongside you and you tackle whatever it is. Right. So that may be the highest level of value I have on offer, but I'm also going to add value in the conversation. So I know that the conversations people have with me, it's not small talk. It's not chatting, right? Even connecting to me feels different than chatting, than talking for talking's sake. Right? So I'm very intentional, and I do see it as a gift to them, and I see it as a gift to me. So that's the other thing. I love connecting with people. I learn from people. There are things that come out of these connection conversations that end up in the coaching conversation I have later that day. So I am always being coached and always being served as well. So it is certainly not a, you know, I'm here and the person, no, it's like we're just connecting. And who knows, there may be something they're doing in the world that can help what I'm up to in the world. So I'm just so open to these possibilities and this free exchange of value. And I see those conversations as valuable.
Wow, that is wonderful. And so you've opened up to conversations, being everywhere, getting in communication. And so would you say that's the big one of the big things that really shifted for you,
Yeah.
to help you create that full practice?
Big time. Can we make this real? I want to make this
Yeah.
practical. And maybe the best way to do, look, I'm here to share, right? I share my experiences in hopes that it will be valuable to somebody else, that they can take that and see something different in their world. So I would love to share one story that I think highlights that piece, right? Conversations are everywhere. And it's something where it would have looked different to me before I had that realization, that insight, or before I took that on as true. Um, can I share that here?
Yeah.
Awesome. So years ago, Saturday night, it is my brother-in-law's 40th birthday party. So he's married to my sister, and we go over to his house. Now, I'm not going there to do anything but celebrate him, eat some good food. And they brought in this pig roast. It was awesome. Eat some good food, drink some big, it's 40th birthday, right? So my sister went all out and threw him this cool party. There were people from just all parts of his life. Most of the people I did not know in the room. And I just show up and I'm there and I end up in this conversation with a woman. And I mean, I remember we're in their kitchen, we're on the counter, and we ended up talking for probably 20, 25 minutes. And we're talking about our kids. And so I just told you that any conversation with me is valuable. Like I just go deep naturally and people are comfortable talking to me. People often tell me they say things to me they don't say to anybody else, and they're surprised they're saying some of these things. And so I'm talking to this woman about parenting. I have two young boys. Her kids are older. She's got incredible, this woman is an incredible mother. She, I could do a whole episode on who this woman is as a mother. Um, I just felt myself getting emotional because she's pregnant now. So she has two almost adult kids and she's been wanting to be pregnant. Um, and she's pregnant and expecting another, which is amazing. But we talk about our kids. I think nothing of it. I go away. Later in the party, a guy that I'd met once, it is my brother-in-law's best friend, comes up to me. He says, "Hey, my fiance said I should have a conversation with you. I'm looking for a coach. And she says, I need to talk to you about being my coach." Me and this woman never talked about, I mean, we talked about what I did, but we never like talked about coaching. We never talked to, she just knew that's what I did. It came up. And furthermore, she said, "And I know you coach your sister, and your sister tells me that she fired her other coach and she hired you and is the best decision she made." So are you open to us having a conversation about coaching and what that could look like? He's the CFO of a water district out in California. Now, fast forward to today, he's renewed with me 3 times. He's been to an immersion. So he's flown to England and had an experience at one of Ankush's immersion. He's going, I just had a conversation with him. He's a current client. He's going to Jamie Damsker from AJC's CEO retreat on the Mount. Like, just serve this guy. And it all started with a conversation at a 40th birthday party about kids. Now, before we leave this 40th birthday party, I want to tell you what else I saw. I told you my sister went all out. There was a guy there who they have a pool in their backyards. They hired a bartender, young guy. And this guy was hustling. He was getting after it. And he had, kind of some of his social handles over here. And he's pouring me a drink. He's making me a drink. And I said, dude, I see how hard you're hustling, man. You're getting after it. I said, is this your business? And he said, yeah, man, it is. And he starts telling me, I just get curious. I'm just sitting there now having a conversation, just connecting with the guy. Great, man. How long have you been doing it? Well, I've worked for these companies and I just went out on my own a few months ago. Cool. What's the vision? Like, what are you looking to create? What is this thing going to be? And we just talked. We just connected for 10 or 15 minutes. And I said, man, I would love to pick up this conversation and hear more about what you're creating, what you're up to. He gave me his card. We ended up having a conversation later. Right. So a second conversation is created at this 40th birthday party. There's an amazing butcher that lives out near them. They make these just incredible burgers that are everything. I mean, they're everything. And so I'll go in there and get these burgers. And I told you that they had a pig roast at this party. And this guy comes in, I mean, full out, like full pig, like it was wild. And I recognized the guy that came in because he works at the butcher. And he had just helped me talk about, they have a lot of different versions of these burgers. And we're talking about what I should try and things like that. And I didn't know his name or anything else, but I was like, man, dude, like, you work at the butcher, right? And he's like, yeah, man, I remember. He said, we're talking about burgers. So we remember that brief interaction and conversation. And I'm like, so is this with that? He's like, no, this is with another company I do. Long story short, James, I end up talking to this guy about what he's up to. He has a dream and a vision for not only working in this kind of work, but he wanted to start a food truck because he said as popular as food trucks have become, he's Jewish and there are no kosher food trucks. And he really wants to start a kosher food truck. So you got to think early days, my practice isn't full. Like all of these are conversations. All of these are people who in my mind could become a potential client. And so I created 3 conversations out of my brother-in-law's 40th birthday party. So when I say conversations are everywhere, I just think that's a really good illustration of what's possible if we're aware, if we're paying attention, if we're shining our light on who's up to what in the world and what potential conversations are waiting for us. And then we get into action, get curious and create conversations and create service. I served all of those people. One of them became a client and has been a great client. That client has created referrals. He was in my Leadership Institute last year. He brought his number 2 to my Leadership Institute. I've had 2 other clients that I'm currently coaching that were referrals from this guy. Like the economic impact of a conversation with his fiance at the time about kids on my business has been massive. But it's because of the way we show up to conversations and our willingness to create conversations wherever we are.
Wow. I love this, Daryl. Thank you so much for sharing the real story, because I think it really illustrates and paints a picture of what's possible. What would you, as we're winding down here, what do you want to leave people with? What do you want them to know?
I think you've really called out some of the big shifts that are important. One, we want to treat our business as a business, not as a hobby, right? If you're building a coaching business, and I literally just did this with a company that they're freight forwarders, right? So scaling startup, growing like crazy, talked to a leader who had just brought in a sales guy and he was struggling, and we broke down the systems. And what he left with is, how many conversations with decision makers, like you say, this is the goal. You want him to close, 2 to 3 pieces of business a month. How many conversations with decision makers will that require in a given week? Said 25 to 50. Boom. Like, he's now able to go have a conversation with that guy, not about is he doing a good job or a bad job, not about all, like, we just really got to what matters in driving that business forward. And so that's available to all of us as coaches. And then this idea that conversation, so you take that and then you say, okay, so I'm going to go create these conversations. Where are they? Well, they're everywhere. I want to tell one more quick thing, just of service, that is the same idea, and it shows up differently. We can be creative in creating these conversations, right? So one of the ways that I've seen a lot of coaches do is they go out and they write Facebook posts and they hope people will comment and they hope they can create conversations out of that. But one of the things I often share with people are stories of creating conversations in other people's posts. I have a client right now who has an incredible client he got because he left a comment in somebody else's post. So 2 different people, neither of them were the original poster, connected through the comments. And early days, one of the things that I did in creating conversations, and I didn't have a niche, I didn't know who I was really going to work with. And I was working with a coach here and a coach there, but I would just serve everywhere I am, including online communities. I would go into, I went to IPEC as my coaching school. And I started looking in, I was in their LinkedIn group, or maybe, yeah, I think it was a LinkedIn or Facebook group, one or the other. And people come in there and they ask coaching questions. And we can ignore them. We can respond to them, or we could be of deep service. And so every once in a while, I'll see a question. Now, and I will give not a 2 or 3 sentence response. I'll give a 4 or 5 paragraph response. I'll go deep with it. And I will tell them at the end of whatever I'm sharing, by the way, I have a powerful resource that speaks directly to this. If you want that resource, just let me know. I am happy to share it freely. Send it over. Or I will leave a comment and I will say, hey, there is so much more I could say about this that I believe would be helpful to you. I don't want to make this an essay in the comments, but if you want to continue this conversation, send me a message. I'm happy to carve out some time to have that conversation with you. And what happens every time is, first of all, the poster says, yes, my God, thank you. This was helpful. Talking to you more would be helpful. Thank you. But then I get other people. Hey, I would love a conversation about that. I would love to talk about that. That would be great for me too. So we can serve people wherever we are, even in the comments. And this doesn't just have to be in a coaching community. Whatever your niche is it about leadership? Is it about management? Is it about health? Wherever it is, go serve. Offer up a conversation to take something deeper. And you'll see that not only are you going to find yourself in conversations with the poster, but other people in community who resonate with that same challenge and see you as somebody who can help. So again, another way to see, like, we're walking right by conversations every time we get online and every time we go out into the world.
That's so helpful. And if somebody wanted to connect with you or find out more about what you do, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, find me. I'm easy to get a hold of. I am on my 2 primary channels online publicly, I would say, are Facebook and LinkedIn. So look for me, look for my name. I love serving. I serve there too. I share videos. I share some of the things I'm learning. I share what I'm up to as a way of being service, much like this podcast. Um, and visit my website. And it's really easy, DerylSweeney.com. You can see what I'm up to there. There's a contact me for. My email's Daryl@DerylSweeney.com. So there are no shortage of number of ways to get a hold of me.
Excellent. Thank you. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me, it's jmwhiteman.com. And thank you so much, Deryl, for coming here, sharing. Just you have such a body of work, and the work that you've also done just personally and professionally is amazing. And I want to just thank everybody who really took the time to listen and re-listen to this, because there's so much value that you really brought here. Thank you so much. And thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys. Bye.